Shohei Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani.
Great Shohei Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani. If you're a baseball fan, you've heard that name more than any other by now. His name has been in a lot of baseball headlines, and rightfully so. Nobody earns higher than him in sports history, and as a two-way player, he's a two-time unanimous MVP. He's in the MLB quite alright, but really, he's in a league of his own. Joining the Dodgers in 2023 was the start of a new chapter for him. And just when you think he can't break any more records, there's one thing about the Babe Ruth debate no one is noticing or talking about. But before we talk about that, we have to talk about how Shohei Ohtani and Babe Ruth earned the highest salaries in the MLB. To be fair, there have been comparisons between the two, especially about their dual nature as two-way players who excel at both roles. But these comparisons only exist because the pair share an exclusive set of records despite playing a century apart. They're the only players to have at least 100 home runs and over 500 strikeouts simultaneously. They're also the only players to start a game while leading the major league in home runs. However, there are some things Ohtani is doing that Babe Ruth never did. Ohtani has multiple seasons where he's had 10 wins as a pitcher with 10 home runs. He's also surpassed Babe Ruth's career strikeouts. Needless to say, Ohtani is a great player, and Babe Ruth was a legend. That's why both of them earned higher than anybody in the league during their eras. Ohtani's 10-year, $700 million contract is the biggest in the history of organized sports. Messi never got such a contract, and neither did LeBron James or Tom Brady. His annual earnings are about the size of the Yankees' current two best players and highest earners, Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge. Babe Ruth wasn't doing too bad for himself either. In 1922, 2 years into a stint as a Yankee, he signed a deal that saw him earn $52,000 a year. That may sound small considering that's the average annual income in America in 2023, but it was the highest salary at the time, and when you adjust it for inflation, that's over $800,000 in today's money. By the time he had just about hit the peak of his career in the early 1930s, he was earning $80,000, which was more than the most powerful man in America, President Hoover. But insane salaries aren't the only thing Ohtani has in common with the great Bambino. For Ohtani to even be mentioned in the same sentence as Babe Ruth by many people says a lot about the Japanese star. It means they see a lot of Babe Ruth in him, and they're not wrong. Because, for starters, they're both two-way players, are lethal with a bat, and equally as dangerous from the mound. But their similarities go beyond where they played. It's also about how they played. Babe Ruth was known for his wicked curveballs. Whenever he stuck his tongue out of the corner of his mouth, batters knew what was coming. You know who else has a sick curvy pitch? Shohei Ohtani. But what's crazy about this is that although he pitches like Babe, Ohtani's numbers suggest that he's better as a pitcher.
Play there on Arroyo. And now 68 with the curveball.
In fact, Ohtani and Ruth have way more differences than they share similarities. I mean, they played during times that aren't remotely similar to each other in any way. Ohtani plays and trains with state-of-the-art facilities and knows even the smallest of details about his performance data. Not to mention that looking as fit as a swimsuit model is a norm of baseball players in this century. This is something that Babe Ruth can't relate to. But perhaps the biggest difference in their game is something almost too shocking to believe. Between Babe Ruth and Shohei Ohtani, only one of them is truly a two-way player, and it's not Bambino. I know, but hear me out. Ruth played for 22 seasons, but he only ever really pitched a quarter of that time. His true pitching years were between the 5-year stretch of 1915 to 1919. In those years, he pitched an average of 233 innings a season. During that time, he registered less than 10 homers. After 1919, we barely saw Babe on the mound. In fact, he only pitched 31 more innings for the rest of his career. The funny thing is, his pitching lasted only during the dead ball era, when pitchers didn't have to work too hard. And the moment the dead ball era ended, he stopped pitching regularly. This is likely because he was too busy batting balls out of the ballpark. In 1920, Babe got 54 homers and 59 the season after. When he hit a career high of 60 in 1927, it had been over half a decade since he pitched. Ruth was never an outstanding pitcher. He was just a decent batter who started pitching because the era didn't care enough for home runs. But when the times changed, he dropped pitching to focus on batting. As for Ohtani, when he won the American League Rookie of the Year title, he batted .285, registered 22 home runs and 61 RBIs with a 3.31 ERA and 62 strikeouts. In his first season, Ruth had more than 20 home runs, but got only 30 strikeouts. During the 2 seasons in 2021 and 2023 that Ohtani was voted unanimously as the American League MVP, he had 46 and 43 home runs and struck out 189 and 143 players while batting .257 and .304 respectively. Similarly, Ruth was a great batter and a fairly good pitcher, but he was never the two at the same time like Ohtani is. And the crazy thing is, this was a myth of the legendary Ruth that we believed for a long time, until Ohtani showed us what it truly meant to be a real two-way player. But as much as Ohtani's stats debunks and goes contrary to popular beliefs about Babe Ruth, his accomplishments are something Ohtani hasn't touched yet. Ohtani may just about have an edge over Ruth in pitching, but in batting, that's not the same story. Babe Ruth batted .342, .474, and .690, and capped his career off with 714 home runs and 2,214 RBIs in the regular season. Ohtani isn't batting that well and needs 500 more homers and an extra 1,800 RBIs to match Ruth's record. With a 162-game average of 39 homers and 101 RBIs as of early 2024, Ohtani could elapse his Dodgers contract and still not reach Ruth's numbers. But holding Ohtani to the same standards as Babe Ruth isn't fair. When Ruth was stat padding his batting numbers, he had practically stopped pitching, and the pitchers he faced were nothing compared to the ones of the modern era. Hence, if we're going with the numbers, the debate was over long ago. But the race isn't about statistics. Ohtani is chasing more than just figures. He's chasing greatness, and he's not far behind. Ohtani already has more All-Star appearances, MVP titles, and Silver Sluggers than Babe Ruth. Where he falls short, aside from the batting stats, is the MLB's ultimate prize, a World Series title. Ohtani is still looking for his first, when Ruth had 7. However, even if he manages to land just 3 before the end of his career, that would still affirm his status as a true outlier in the league, since no active player as of 2024 has more than 2 titles. 2024 marks the first year of Ohtani's 10-year contract with the Dodgers, so there's plenty of time for his legacy to catch up to Ruth's. But with all that's been said and done, there's still one last detail. There's still that part about why we're really here. We love Babe Ruth's legacy and career, but he only made people fall in love with the game. He didn't exactly change it. And this is what Ohtani has done and is still doing. To put this in perspective, we can say he's the baseball version of Steph Curry. He's redefining how the sport is played. Given how technical and demanding professional sports has become, specialization is important. Players stick to certain roles their whole careers and master it. Young baseball players who had a thing for pitching and hitting were normally forced to pick between one of the two. Until Shohei Ohtani showed that it's not only possible to play both, but master them at the same time. A practice that was once frowned at is now getting embraced. In 2018, minor league players Brendan McKay and Hunter Green, both among top 4 picks in the draft the previous year, were playing 2 roles, pitching and hitting. Guess who also joined the league that year? Shohei Ohtani. In 2023, 8 two-way players were picked in the draft. That's the most two-way players that have ever been selected in an MLB draft, and we all know who's the reason behind it. Across high schools and minor leagues, more and more coaches are training players as both hitters and pitchers. A phenomenon that wouldn't have been possible without this man. 100 years from now, we'll look at Ohtani the same way we look at Babe Ruth now. Heck, by then, you might mention the name Babe Ruth and people would look at you a little confused. Babe Ruth's face may already be on the Mount Rushmore of baseball's greatest players, but Ohtani is slowly carving his face there too. As much as he's on the course to have a legacy like Ruth, unlike the Yankees legend, he's caused a great culture shift in baseball. That's the truth about Ohtani, a truth that we're slowly watching reveal itself before us. Or, what do you think? Let us know in the comments section, and while you're at it, check out this other crazy video about Ohtani here.